Welcome back, everyone. Today in our user track, we had WordPress 101 earlier, so I hope if you were in there, you got something beneficial. Right now, I'm really excited to be introducing one of our regular meetup attendees, Abby Buzon. Abby started her company, The Helpful Marketer, in 2017 after 7 years in marketing, technology, and website administration. She helps small business owners improve their online presence and local visibility with marketing and web design services aimed at drawing new business and increasing customer retention. So join me in welcoming Abby.
Thank you very much, Megan. So Megan just told my story, so I don't really need to say anything else about that. But one thing that she missed, I have a hyphenated middle name, little known fact. I didn't want to lose my Armstrong. So my full name is Abby Armstrong Lehman Buzon. Too much of a daddy's girl and a mama's girl and couldn't get rid of either name. So, yes, as Megan mentioned, my business is The Helpful Marketer. I've been in business for myself now for 3 years and have been in website administration for 10 since 2010. Currently, I am maintaining 29 websites. So that's 29 websites that I'm responsible for keeping up to date, secure, optimized. 19 of those are websites that I designed, and then the other 10 are adopted children from random divorces and whatnot that I've taken over. So, and then that's not counting the dozens of other websites that I have helped people with. I get recommended on Facebook by all of my wonderful clients all of the time to fix strange random things. And so I have seen dozens of themes and literally hundreds of plugins and literally hundreds of problems. So I want to talk to you today about not what all of those problems are and how to solve them necessarily, but who to turn to, where to even begin looking when a problem comes up, because sometimes it's really not clear. Is this a hosting issue? Is this something that the theme developer needs to be involved in? Where do we even start? So this is how to troubleshoot. And in addition to creating 19 plus websites, I created one child too, and you'll get to see him at the end. And I'm in Lodi, Ohio, so that's southwestern Medina County. Grew up in Cleveland, though. So to begin with, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So I can't even begin talking about troubleshooting problems without at least starting out by saying how to prevent those problems, because a great deal of them can be prevented. And things that you can do to help yourself out when those problems do come up, because it's going to happen. Backups, of course, backups. I know that Joe talked about this, but there's absolutely no reason to not have regularly scheduled backups. There are plenty of plugins that do them for free. There are services that do them automatically every night. My personal favorite is Managed WP. It's a part of, it's a GoDaddy company. I know GoDaddy is one of our sponsors here this weekend, so thank you very much, GoDaddy. I'm in no way affiliated or paid by them or anything. I just really love Managed WP. And they do free monthly automated backups. You can set it to happen on the first of the month at 2 a.m. But if you have more dynamic than static content, so if you have a e-commerce website, if you have a relatively active blog, then splurge and spend the whopping $1.80 a month, and it's literally just per month. You don't even have to pay for a year up front. $1.80 a month to get automatic daily backups. set it and forget it, and the restoration process on there is a breeze. It's better than any restoration I've come across. It's like 2 clicks and I've never had an issue, which I can't say about any other backup and restore process. It's always terrifying, but they make it pretty easy. But of course, any part of any good hosting should also have daily backups. That's not the only reason for choosing good hosting. When I started out in website administration, I'll admit that I thought, why should I pay $10 a month for hosting when I can get it for $250 a month? You know, as long as it's not totally unreliable, as long as it's not slow or conking out all the time. Wrong. There's a huge difference. Good hosting isn't just faster. It isn't just, more reliable, better uptimes. Good hosting has all of those benefits, like daily, nightly backups. And there's some other benefits too that I'll get into in a little bit. The theme that you choose and the plugins that you choose, make sure and vet them thoroughly. Make sure that it's a reliable theme developer. As Joe said, do not, please, for the sake of internet security everywhere, do not Google free WordPress themes or plugins, because I guarantee they're up to no good. Go to the repository and check. But we'll get into vetting plugins and themes a little bit more in just a second here. And really with plugins, I say avoid them at all costs. Most of the time, there are things that you can find, if you're comfortable with it, find a snippet of PHP. You can make your own plugin even. I know that sounds to most people like crazy, like, oh my God, I could never create a plugin. It is so incredibly simple. And with the WordPress community that we have, there are so many resources out there that will walk you through every step of doing it. And these are people who have put this information out there literally just to be helpful. So there are so many great resources out there other than random free plugins. If you need to be able to, say, remove your header and navigation menu on select pages, don't use a plugin. Just so that you have a little checkbox on each page where you can hide the header. There are so many ways that you can go about that without a plugin. Anytime that you add a plugin to your site, you need to think about it as inviting a stranger into your home. You are inviting a complete stranger into the admin side of your website. The admin side where you are entering your password, where you are logging in, where your customers are making purchases. It's not something to be taken lightly. This isn't just like adding a sticker onto your notebook. This is a program that has access to the administrative side of your website. So please vet them thoroughly. A little bit more about what we're looking for with plugins. So think about how badly do you actually need it, and how rare and unique of a situation is this? Is it adding an email subscription button to your site? There's probably 100 plugins out there for that. So you should have plenty of good choices of reputable plugins to choose from. If it's something a little bit more unique and rare, then you're probably not going to have as many choices. And as long as there aren't any big red flags, which we'll talk about in a second, then absolutely. There is definitely a place for plugins. You have to have some security plugins. You have to have a forms plugin. Um, I'm definitely not saying don't have any plugins, but please don't have 20 plugins. And then another thing is, how much time do you have? Do you have the time to go and do some research and figure out how to do whatever you're trying to do yourself? And it's a really rewarding feeling when you finally do figure that out, that, wow, I just created my own plugin. I just made it so that I didn't have to put some strange, unreliable plugin on my website and fix this problem myself, and it works. Like, it's a really good feeling. And like I said, our community makes it so that it's not so scary and not so intimidating, because there are a lot of resources out there. Now, of course, like I said, every plugin has its place. If it has 100 5-star reviews, and big thing are all of the support requests resolved. There's not a whole lot of other options out there. Absolutely go for it. And another thing I liked that Joe said was that be sure and check your other plugins first. You might already have something that can achieve this for you. Especially some of the page builder plugins. If you're a Beaver Builder user, if you're using like something from Brainstorm Force, a lot of times they have all kinds of stuff in there that you don't even really think about. They already have a mail subscription option that you just need to turn on. So with repository plugins, now you can view the repository plugins from your own site when you go in and search for plugins when you're in your WP admin. And you can also go to wordpress.org and search for plugins there. So here's what we're looking at. We're looking at ratings, and we're looking at support. Sometimes there's always going to be a couple of bad ratings, and read them. If you have the time to, read them. It's interesting because sometimes it'll just say something like, it didn't work. Okay. Well, I wouldn't put too much weight on that over the 12 5-stars. So see what they actually say and if there really is a problem. But even more so, check out the support forum. Are the developers still actively engaged and responding to support requests? If you look in there and you see, there's a column for the number of comments, and you see 0, 0, 0, 0, 0 for the last 6 months, not a good sign. Yes, sometimes there's plugins that don't really need updated, and so the developers might have just kind of put them out there a couple years ago and just let go of them. But for the most part, if you see something where there's no longer someone responding to support requests, that's a big red flag. And hop in there and check out what the support tickets are. Is this just people having user error issues? Or is the plugin actually crashing people's sites? So what kind of problems are people having? What are they reporting? And then here's another good one to watch for is, when was it last updated? And luckily it gives us this warning now that says this plugin hasn't been tested with your current version of WordPress. Okay, that's good to know. Now, granted, we've had a lot of, I forget what they're called, the mini updates, the, 5.2.4.5. So a client of mine had come across this message on their website and said, Abby, should I not have this? Should I get rid of this? Is this like, putting me at risk of getting hacked? Well, then if you see, it says last updated 2 days ago. It had just happened to fall at the time of a WordPress update. So definitely nothing to be concerned about here. Something to keep your eye on, make sure that they catch up, because oftentimes those incremental releases have security concerns involved. So you want to make sure that if there was something security related, that the plugin is also keeping up with whatever that risk was that was discovered. And then vetting themes, if they have a support community, go for it. You know, themes are a very funny thing, and there are a lot of options out there. I like to, my personal preference, I like to find one theme and stick with it and use child themes to do my customization. That's entirely up to you. Go back and watch Joe's part on themes. But again, don't go to Google and put in free WordPress themes and just click on some random site and download a theme from there. Okay, so now into the fun part. This is my favorite part, the whole investigation part. So when you're getting started out with a site, this is when you're most likely to run into those kinds of major, oh no, oh my God, what is going on here kind of issues. So these are any kind of setup issues. When you're first installing WordPress, when you are migrating a site over from one host to another, when you are taking a site from staging and launching it live. And then, you know, early in the design phase, there's all of the numerical errors, your 400 bad requests, your 404 page not found errors, the 500s, the too many redirects, the internal server errors. These are just some examples, and I'm not going to spend much time here because the causes and the fixes can vary greatly. The bad request could be a bad cookie, and you just need to clear your cache. And this is going to be an ongoing theme in all of this. Clear your cache. And it's very easy to forget to do sometimes, or you might have cleared it a little bit ago, and then you're like, oh, but I just cleared it. I'm going to clear it again. And there's caching on so many levels. And I'll kind of list those out in an upcoming slide. But very often, the fix to your problem is going to be clearing your cache. When it comes to the 404 page not found errors, especially if you are in your own WP admin and you go to view one of your pages and you get a 404 error, you're like, you took me here, like you should know. So sometimes what happens with that, if you have recently changed your permalinks, there's certain times where you actually need to go in and save your permalinks twice. So you click save and you have to click save again. Sometimes that's the issue. Sometimes it's something with htaccess. And then same thing with the error too many redirects. Have you been playing with your htaccess file? Maybe that's your problem. So when these things come up, who do you turn to? Why is my site down? Why can't I access my pages? Who do I turn to now? That's why you have good hosting. This is so not their problem. It's totally not. I mean, they're somewhat responsible for, you know, your PHP and your SSL certificates, but otherwise this is not their problem. If you messed up your htaccess file, that's not what they're there for. But if you have a good hosting company, they'll help you. And that is one of the biggest differences between good hosting and bad hosting for me personally, is the level of support and how much they're able to help you. Now, of course, well, and so this was another funny one that I got the other day, of course, on Facebook, someone who had gotten my name. I had never seen an error like this before. she's a photographer and couldn't upload photos to her own website all of the sudden. Turns out she had just went from PHP 5 something to 7, not even like 7.2, I think just to 7. And now she can't upload images into her media. The error was missing a temporary folder. Okay. So what do? I Google it. Why she didn't Google it, I don't know. But Googled it, and sure enough, it says that it's a hosting issue. It is something that, pretty much only your hosting company can help you with. I asked her who her hosting company was, and it was some strange company I had never heard of. Surprise, surprise. So these are the kinds of things where it's prevention and setting yourself up for success rather than failure with having a good hosting company. Now, if by chance you didn't heed that warning, you're already signed up with a bad hosting company, they're saying, this isn't our problem, we can't help you. Luckily, we have the WordPress community. And I know that you've been hearing this all throughout this weekend. We have an amazing community of people who are here to help you. And there's a ton of forums out there where you can get help in a pinch. This is even more so my favorite part, this part of the investigation. So when something that looks funny, that's not the right font. Why is that image huge? Sometimes things are completely missing. These are the mid-design issues and beyond. These are the problems that happen after your site is launched. They could be caused by a plugin update, and you might not even realize it for a couple weeks. So you might not even know what plugin got updated that caused this problem. So this is where you need to use DevTools. If you don't know what DevTools are, when you are in your browser and you right-click, there's a shortcut to inspect. And whether you're using Chrome or Firefox, they all have DevTools. They're called different things in different areas, but generally you can right-click and use the inspect shortcut to be able to dive into what's actually happening behind the scenes, what CSS styles are being applied, what JavaScript files are being called, are there any errors? I knew that I'd run out of time and that I wouldn't have time to demo DevTools for you, but this is kind of the moral of the story here is get to know DevTools. And I have a link at the end of this to a blog post I created on my website, thehelpfulmarketer.com, that has some helpful links and a really cool video put out by Chrome, if you're a Chrome user, on their DevTools and all of the really cool things that you can do with DevTools when it comes to troubleshooting. And if you do contact someone, so you're like, okay, this is something wrong with my theme, this is something wrong with this plugin, and you contact the developers or you're filing a ticket with your hosting company, their first recommendation is almost always going to be to disable all your plugins and to switch your theme. At first, this can seem terrifying, but know that all WordPress plugins go through a relatively intense vetting process to even make it into the repository, into WordPress.org's listing of themes and of plugins. And this is standard in WordPress. If there is an issue, it is standard to be able to disable a plugin to do troubleshooting. So they are built to be able to handle this. It is terrifying when you've spent 10 hours, tweaking everything to perfection. You have set up your font sizes for every H1 through H6 for mobile and tablet and desktop. You've selected this whole beautiful color palette. You have set up your padding, your defaults for everything. You're like, no, I cannot risk just shutting this off. Of course, make a backup. That's a given. But don't be afraid of doing this. WordPress is set up to be able to handle disabling a plugin without messing anything up when you go to turn it back on. So depending on the problem that you're having, it might be a good idea to start there before you contact any kind of support. Disable plugins, turn them back on one by one. And all of this is on WordPress.org with instructions for how to go through this kind of troubleshooting. I have links to that in the article as well, so don't worry about like writing all this down. But I wanted to note that because it's so scary. And it took me a long time to be okay with disabling my plugins and switching my theme. They'll recommend that you switch your theme over to one of the WordPress defaults to 2019 or 2020. And then if you're using a child theme, to turn on the parent theme and rule out if the issue is there or if the issue is with the child theme. So sometimes you're like, oh, this has to be a bug. This has to be a glitch. I've put everything in here perfectly. There's got to be something wrong here. So could it be? The odds are no. The odds are no. Most likely it's something that you have done. So know that when you go to file your support ticket, that they are going to assume that it's user error. They're going to need a whole lot of convincing to believe you that there is some kind of bug, that there's some kind of glitch on their end that they need to fix. Now, all of the forms and stuff are great because if there is a bug out there, like, hey, did everyone else's, buttons just get completely messed up, who uses Beaver Builder? Oh, yeah, there's 10 other people on here. Okay, then it is a bug. I'm still going to file a report, but I won't go into as much detail. But you have to, prove yourself. So when you go to write out this support ticket, list out everything that you have done. Everything you've looked at, everything you've tested, include screenshots, tell them what plugins you've disabled, let them know if you've switched over to 2020 theme, everything that you've done to rule things out, put that in there. And half the time as you're creating that support ticket, you might find the answer to your own problem. Because as you start to retrace your footsteps, and this is another thing, documentation and leaving yourself notes. There's a good reason why, you'll go through somebody's work if they have a child theme and there are notes all along the CSS of what everything is. And in your htaccess file, there's always a way to leave yourself notes. You may think, oh, I'm definitely going to remember this. No, you're not going to remember this. So leave yourself a trail of what you've done. And guaranteed half the time when you go to file a bug report, you're going to end up figuring out what you did wrong. So then same thing on the other end, if you are dealing with clients, if you are on that end of things, and they're like, oh, my client just called me and said that the checkout's not working. My mind automatically goes, okay, what are they doing wrong? Because most likely it's not a bug. So always assume that and always know that that is being assumed of you as well. So key takeaways from this. Number one, clear your cache, because most likely the problem is going to be that caching is holding on to something strange somewhere. You made changes, only half of them are showing, and or you added a plugin or you changed themes and now half of stuff is all wonky, but when you're logged in, everything looks fine. Start out there. Assume that it's caching. there's so many different levels. You have your browser caching. You have, if you have a hosting company that has their own caching and optimization plugin, or if you have, W3, or you have whatever all of the caching plugins are that are out there. When you go to make changes, turn those off. If you use a CDN, like Cloudflare, they always have a development mode. Turn that on. If you know you're going to be making changes, prevent the heart attacks and the heartache, and turn off as much caching as you can, and know to keep clearing that browser cache as you're testing things out. If you're a Chrome user, there's a really cool extension that you can add that puts up on your browser right next to the address bar, like where the bookmark star is, little recycle icon that you just click and it clears your cache, and that's all you have to do. You don't have to go into history and dig around for it. And then another thing to remember, and this is more so when you're waiting on the dreadful DNS propagation period. That's when, if you've made any changes to your DNS settings, so if you just launched a site, if you just moved hosting, if you have changed any DNS record pointing, there's this period of waiting, and it's terrible. And your internet service provider, that's what an ISP is, internet service provider, holds on to things to reserve them to people in your area faster, which is great. But sometimes you need to know now, how do things look? Are they working okay? So my favorite trick for this is to turn off Wi-Fi on my phone so that I'm just on 4G, 5G, whatever service it is, and open up a browser in mobile and check there, because that's the most kind of instant connection that you'll get. Number 2, DevTools. DevTools are your best friend. Learn them, use them. They're so much fun. And don't be scared off by the name, because I'm not a developer and I love using DevTools. Remember number 3, always disable plugins and switch your theme. Number 4, GTS. If you don't know what that means, Google that stuff. And this may seem obvious, but becoming a good Google searcher, a good Google investigator, kind of is an acquired skill. And especially when it comes to WordPress problems. You want to use exact quotes. If you're getting an exact error, use exact quotes to search for it. And don't be afraid to read through some of the more techie and scary forums. So places like Stack Overflow and Stack Exchange, they can have great information, because if you're experiencing the problem, then chances are somebody else has had the same problem and probably posted it somewhere on the internet asking for help. So find what worked for them, try it yourself. If you're not finding anything, refine your search and try again. Use the, let's say you don't want anything about Divi. This isn't about Divi. So you put -Divi in your Google search. This isn't about redirects. Put -redirects. So it's an acquired skill. Number 5, always assume it's user error and know that everyone is assuming on you that you are the user with the error. And number 6, take a deep breath, because even though it's like, oh my God, now the site is down, you're probably the only one who will even notice. If you're like me, you work at 2 o'clock in the morning anyway, and normally people aren't browsing your site at that time anyway. So it's not that big of a deal. We all make mistakes. Things happen. I know it felt good for me when I heard Nathaniel or Nate, I'm blanking on his full name right now, but heard him say that he had goofed up client sites before and had clients mad at him, and like, You're not the only one. So take a deep breath, know that it's okay, start retracing your steps, and you will find the answer. And that's it. So here's the link. I have posted all of these resources, a video on how to use Chrome DevTools, and a bunch of other resources at thehelpfulmarketer.com/wc-kent-2020. And that's it. Oh, and that is the child that I created. That is Joey in his bathrobe that he chose that is brown and just looked so Star Wars. And so he had to go get his lightsaber. Cutest thing ever. So that's it. Thank you all so much.
He is adorable. It would only be better if you just had him like dressed like that in person right now, waving the lightsaber around. All right, so I've got some questions from the audience. Let's see, who was this? I think it was Sandro. Sandro asked, if you've never written your own plugin before and want to learn how, what would be a good resource?
Google. And hi, Sandro. I'm so sad that I can't see you, but I'm so glad you're here. No, to be honest, I don't even remember what all resources that I used. I can't think of specifically any one website that really helped me with figuring out how to create my own plugin for things. Yeah, I wish I had a better answer.
Another person at some point said it. What did they say? Well, it's probably good to get a variety anyways. So Google is #1 source. Everyone's going there anyways. So, and then I was curious if you have ever had to switch hosts due to a pesky issue that they weren't able to sort out, or and what's that been like when you're selecting hosts? How long has it taken you to like get a grasp on who the good ones are?
That's a tough one, and I think I'm still trying to get a grasp on it. I will say that I have really enjoyed working with SiteGround. They are who I use currently. I also use A2, and their support is great, but their tools aren't as cutting edge. SiteGround is doing a lot of really cutting edge stuff when it comes to tools, specifically for agencies, freelancers. They're really looking and trying hard to be at the forefront of, WordPress pioneering. They have a optimization plugin that is just amazing, that has it's not just gzip compression and expires headers, browser caching. It's also image lazy loading. They are doing all kinds of, beyond JavaScript and CSS minification. They're doing, and not even just async loading either. They're actually doing JavaScript combining, which I haven't dared try yet because I've never had a good experience with any kind of plugin that has combined JavaScript files. But yeah, they're working really hard to come up with cool and new and inventive services on the hosting end of things. But when it comes to moving hosting companies, that sometimes you just know that they're not going to help you, and you just do it yourself. For making the transfer. There are some companies that are incredibly helpful when it comes to that. They will, make a copy of your entire cPanel if it's a cPanel using host, and then you get to keep all of your email accounts and passwords the way that they were, and all of your email folders and everything's still in the same place. I have encountered a lot of bad hosting companies, though, and they do not do that. They will not help you move your email accounts over. They will not help you move your site over. Bad hosting really is bad hosting. Do not expect good customer service with a $2 a month, never heard of hosting company.
All right. I think the only other question we have is, what types of plugins do you use most?
I use WordFence for security scanning, firewall. And that's another thing with hosting too, though. If you have good hosting, they should really have your butt covered when it comes to firewalls and all of that. But a little extra can never hurt. And I really like WordFence and their live traffic tracking, and they have like 2-factor authentication for admins and all kinds of really good features for security. So yeah, my pile of go-to plugins that I use on every install would be WordFence, Formidable Forms. I love them. Gravity is great too, of course. Now those are paid though. Well, there is a free Formidable, but the paid one is like awesome, especially if you're doing custom post types. Oh my gosh, there's so much you can do between custom post types and Formidable Forms. Duplicate Post. I love Duplicate Post. That's another one of those free ones that, the functionality doesn't need updated a whole lot. So, it's not surprising to see that it hasn't been updated in the last month. Managed WP, that's the plugin that I was talking about that does the free monthly backups, but also does daily backups. And they store them on the Amazon S3 server. So it's not stored on your server. So if something terrible happens, your backup's not going to get wiped out. So Managed WP is the one that does that. And it's not even just backups. They have everything. They have performance monitoring tools. They have security, like a security poker, like I don't know what's the word for this. Security test, essentially. They have a lot of really cool tools. So definitely Managed WP is another one of my first installed plugins. Guess that would really be it for like the core.
That sounds good. You don't want too many strangers in your home, so that's probably a good thing. Thank you so much for your talk. I know everyone found it very helpful. We've got some great comments in there if you want to look at them after.
Great.
And yeah, everyone, we only have one more session left, so thank you all for being a part of WordCamp Kent.
Thank you guys so much.